Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and some more Warzone Eternal. We got a little bit of a basic video for you guys today, so more geared towards new players. And that is really just understanding what the stats and the stat cards really mean and how to make sense of that for the game. So today we're just going to take one here, our handy Free Marine Leader for Capital. And just kind of work our way through it. Some of it will be kind of obvious even if you're not familiar with the game, but just to clarify what a lot of these numbers and letters and stuff mean on here. So we're just going to go through the basic stat line first. Then obviously there's like special abilities and stuff like that. So going through the stat line here, MB is of course movement. So basically how far we can move in our turns and activations and things like that. MW is not movement again or anything like that. It's missile weapon. So basically, how good are we at shooting, right? And that'll help us determine the numbers we need when we're actually shooting at stuff. CC is pretty obvious, close combat. So again, same idea here, except range. We're dealing with hand-to-hand fighting and how good we are at that. ST for strength, basically how physically strong we are and can, in some cases, be used for damage when we're dealing with like striking and stuff like that in hand-to-hand. Defense, so basically how good are we at avoiding damage, and will help like modify like the enemy's ability to hit us when they're shooting at us. AR's armor, right? Pretty obvious as to what that's going to represent, but basically how good are we at shrugging off damage that does get through our defense, essentially. W is simply wounds, so like how much damage can we take and maybe carry on. So this guy here has 2 wounds. PW is power, and basically that's our willpower, and then in some cases for certain models, skills with like either the art or some of the dark symmetry and things like that, which we'll get into in other videos down the road. And then finally, leadership for the rest of the line here. So basically our ability to follow orders and certain actions, basically think command and control, right? So that is a quick look at that. Then the next part of the video, which we'll get into, is basically what do these weapon profiles mean for us. So, we have different weapons here. So we got, in this case, this guy has what's called a Punisher short sword, but he also carries what's also called an M50 assault rifle, right? So obviously a sword is going to be for close combat. We're not throwing that necessarily across the battlefield, but also then the rifle is going to be our main ranged weapon on this guy. So we'll be right back and we'll get ready to talk about that for you guys. Alrighty guys, so let's first up talk about the Punisher short sword. So any weapon right listed will also have some related special rules for it. So here we can see it has Reach 1 and Vicious, which we'll cover special rules in a separate video. But we'll also take a peek at the back of the stat cards too, because they've been handy or thoughtful enough to include some of the important rules right on the back of these to help us out. But there's 2 columns on these for the combat weapon here. So the first one, which we can see, is basically the modifier to the target number for when we're fighting in close combat. So in this case, it's conferring a +1 on us. And the second is the damage value that the weapon will inflict if we are successful in hitting the opponent. So basically our strength will get a +7 with this. So effectively like a 13. So pretty simple there. Again, separate video, we're going to demonstrate with some models. We'll walk through some basic close combat attacks and then also some basic shooting for you guys. But for now, just again, explaining the card. So next up, let's take a look at that M50 assault rifle. Alrighty guys, now let's just walk through the basic gun here, the M50 assault rifle that it has. So in Warzone we have short and long ranges for this. So if you've played things like Infinity before, there's several ranges on that, and other games out there often make use of that. Here we're just dealing with short and long, so nice and simple, right? Either short or long. We got 3 columns to deal with here. So the first one is basically determining what constitutes short versus long range. So everything up to 12 here is going to be considered short, and then 12, well, essentially like 12.1, right? All the way up to 36 would be the max range of the weapon. And considering the size of the table we were typically playing on, I think for Warzone, right, we're dealing with typically 3x3s. Unless you want to do something different, you're going to more or less be able to cover most of the board at any given point, really, for that, barring terrain and stuff getting in the way. So the second column would be, again, modifiers, similar to the way that the close combat weapon has that slot there. Here, we're not getting anything for short with this weapon, and essentially a penalty at long range against an assault rifle, not like a sniper rifle or anything. And then the third column, which is going to be essentially the damage that this weapon will inflict on the opponent. So we got one last thing, and that's a neat thing that this game incorporates. On the right side there, you can see where it says CF, right? So critical failures. So this game has critical failures. So what that means is if a shoot or strike is performed with the weapon naturally, so ignoring the modifiers results in that number, or higher, in this case 20 on a d20, right? Can't really get higher naturally. Then there's going to be a resulting critical failure with that, which again we'll deal with in a separate video. But yeah, just some simple pieces there as far as what that really represents. And then the other thing with the card as well is at the top right there, you can kind of see what they call deployment points, which is DP, and support points. So also similar to Infinity, neat sort of internal balancing mechanism is that you can't spam really special weapons or other certain, just super good models. So there's an extra internal cost on those. Alrighty guys, and then the last little bit here on the back of the card, so we get all our unit special rules. We'll cover those more in depth in a separate series of videos, but this guy is going to give us command, or sorry, not command, well, command, yes, but camouflage, guerrilla, and a lot of these abilities will have different number values attached to them, just depending on the level of the ability, and like in some cases the range that it affects and so on. But we want to just come back to the weapons real quick. So the short sword or whatever that he has here has a reach of 1, so he can kind of start attacking in hand to hand 1 inch away, so whereas the enemy would have to get closer to strike you back. Also has vicious, which is pretty cool here. Vicious increases the the weapon's damage increases by +2 per wound counter on an enemy unit targeted by a strike or shoot action while using this weapon. And then strike actions additionally receive +2 to the unit's close combat rating per wound counter. So if we flip back here to take a look at that, right? So, let's say there's 1 wound on the enemy, right? Our close combat's already going up to 16, and you can start factoring into some of the damage and stuff that we can do here. But his abilities then to camouflage 2, command of Free Marines, Guerrilla 5, and Inspire. But that's just a quick look, guys, and also lets you know here on stats, right? He's a leader of the Free Marine unit. But that's just a quick tour, again, through the stat card for Warzone Eternal here. We'll take a look again at some of the other components of like the special rules and examples of close combat shooting in a separate video. But that's basically all you need to understand all this stuff on a stat card when you're composing your forces. So hope that was somewhat helpful for you guys. We'll be back with more Warzone Eternal soon. Take care.